Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2017 Oklahoma CareerTech Hall of Fame Banquet. If you would all take your seats, we're about ready to begin. If you will please take your seats, we're getting ready to get started.
Okay, kids.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome our host for tonight's festivities, the president of the Oklahoma CareerTech Foundation, Charlotte Edwards.
I am honored and humbled to be here tonight to pay tribute to these 5 individuals who have dedicated their professional lives to the advancement of career and technology education. You are our heroes, and you join a noble group of those who have gone before you. Belinda, I remember when you began your career with the newly created Career Services under the leadership of Gina Howry-Windling. You truly were trailblazers with that group, providing much needed support to so many students and schools. Fern, I can't verbalize how much I admire you. Your contributions to our system through the years are immense, and your professionalism unmatched. I've always said that you were working on behalf of equity before I realized I didn't have it. Jim, I remember when you came to Oklahoma from Missouri, a stranger amongst us. When I learned that you were a distributive education background, I knew that you would be good. You too have been a trailblazer and have provided immeasurable leadership to our system. You are a man of integrity. Tom? Yes. I was so curious about you. This long-haired, bearded guy who wore corduroys, and how you got away with it. But then I learned how brilliant and talented you are. And I've always liked a little bit of a rebel. Dr. Tuttle would never have tolerated that from anyone else. We are truly grateful for the many contributions that you have made throughout your career. Joan, I watched you from afar, crossing paths with you on occasion, mostly at summer conferences. Throughout your career as an entrepreneur, you have always had CareerTech close to your heart, and you have always worked diligently on our behalf. Now I introduce you to Dr. Marcy Mack, our State Director of Career and Technology Education.
Well, good evening, and thank each of you for being here with us this evening, not only to celebrate 5 amazing individuals who have dedicated their careers and moving things forward for us in career and technology education. The number of lives that they've touched with students is insurmountable, and the amount of business and industry training, the connection, the workforce that you've provided and helped us move forward, we cannot put a number to that. Whether it is from the early days when I had the opportunity to meet Joan through ADPC, to all the various facets that we've been able to work through in career and technology education, not only for our programs that are in our K-12 partner schools, but specifically through our technology centers as well. Tonight, these 5 individuals provide us a great example of what all of us in career and technology education get to look forward to and help to maintain and build upon that strong foundation that they've created for us. And many of you in the audience have been a part of creating that foundation, and I want to thank you for helping not only our system to be the nation's best, but also the dedication and time that you give to each of our students, because without you being there every day for them, none of this would be possible for CareerTech or for our state. So thank you for being here with us this evening to celebrate individuals who truly have made a difference for many individuals and left a great legacy and opportunity for all of us to live up to and to make sure that we carry that on. So thank you for being here, and I look forward to celebrating with you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Mack. Please welcome now to the stage Canadian Valley Technology Center student Carla Monjaras. Carla is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. She's a second-year digital media student at CareerTech and a senior at Bethany High School. Carla is also the Oklahoma Skills USA parliamentarian. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our national anthem.
Thank you so much. It is such a great honor to be standing before you. I always have and always will be an advocate for career technical education. Please join me in saluting the flag, the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here to sing our national anthem this evening is Jamie Popp, a health careers instructor at the Cowan campus of CareerTech.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow. Thank you, Carla and Jamie. To offer the invocation, please welcome to the stage Jess Swigert, first-year digital media student at Canadian Valley Technology Center and vice president of the local Business Professionals of America chapter. Jess is a junior at Yukon High School.
Please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Lord, we come to you today in thanks. Thanks for bringing us together to celebrate and thank those who have done so much for this CareerTech. And Lord, we ask that you just bless this food and bring us home to our family safe. In your name we pray, amen.
You may be seated. Thank you, Jess. And ladies and gentlemen, as you enjoy your dinner tonight, please direct your attention to the video screens for a tribute honoring all our Hall of Fame inductees and our sponsors. Enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's program will begin in about 10 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the program will begin in about 5 minutes. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started with our program, we want to thank some of the individuals and organizations who helped make this event possible. We have two Friends of the Foundation donors for this event. As they stand, let's show our appreciation to Curtis and Marcy Mack and to REI Oklahoma. We have several very generous corporate table sponsors we need to thank this evening. Without their contributions, this event would not have been possible. Please join me in thanking ADPC, Tri-County Tech, OKACTE, Moore Norman Technology Center, Francis Tuttle Technology Center, Southern Tech, Great Plains Technology Center, Signal Mountain Associates, and 110 Events. CareerTech is both our event sponsor tonight and our host. Dr. Greg Winters, could you please stand? Thank you, Dr. Winters and CareerTech, for your sponsorship. I hope some of you had an opportunity to take at least a quick tour of CareerTech's beautiful new campus. They're rightfully proud of this incredible facility, and we're grateful they offered to host us so we could all share in their excitement. In addition to Dr. Winters, CareerTech's faculty, staff, and students have done a lot of work behind the scenes. You were likely welcomed to the campus by one of the CareerTech Skills USA or FCCLA officers, and students in CareerTech's Digital Media Technology program are behind the camera and helping with tonight's production. It's being streamed live on YouTube for those who weren't able to attend. Join me in thanking them once again with a big round of applause. And while not listed in your program, tonight's event certainly could not have happened without them, and they are the members of the CareerTech Hall of Fame Planning Committee. Will committee members please stand to be recognized? Now please welcome Charlotte Edwards back to the stage.
Lost my place, excuse me.
Page 14.
Got it. I just found it. Thank you, Connie. Connie, thank you, too. Connie Roman, our background, our announcer. Thank you, Connie. You've done a phenomenal job. Appreciate you. The Hall of Fame Award was established in 1990 to recognize individuals with exemplary records of achievement, individuals who provided leadership and service to career and technology education in Oklahoma. This prestigious honor is the highest award that is given by the CareerTech system. These people are our heroes. Their contributions to career and technology education in Oklahoma are extraordinary. Would the previous honorees of their representatives please stand and be recognized? Come on, guys. I know there's a number of you out there. Tonight we are honoring 5 more of our heroes. They are all great motivators, tenacious individuals, and visionary leaders. Oklahoma's internationally celebrated CareerTech system is built upon the strong leadership and upon the strong foundation laid by these pivotal individuals.
Our first inductee this evening is Dr. Belinda Cole. Presenting Dr. Cole's award is Dr. Ann Benson.
Gosh, it's been a long time since I've stood here. And before I make my comments about Belinda, I'd like to recognize our State Director, Marcy Mack, who was recently recognized as an outstanding State Director by her peers of the State Directors Association. Congratulations, Marcy. It is such an honor to speak on behalf of my friend, Belinda Cole. You see, Belinda is my friend, but chances are everyone in this room that knows Belinda considers her a friend as well. Her ready smile and winning personality cause people to be drawn to her instantly, and beyond that, though, there's so much more. When she left Moore Public Schools as a school counselor, she left behind a school full of young people with whom she had developed a relationship to inspire them to fulfill their dreams and aspirations. Joining the state agency, she saw an opportunity to turn her passion into ways to help schools all across the state implement some of those practices that had worked for her. Soon, technology centers started implementing guidance systems to partner with their sending schools. And the result was young people getting into career pathways that would lead them to success in both careers and further studies. Belinda became recognized beyond the state. She represented Oklahoma and our region on the ACTE Board of Directors, serving as president of the Guidance Division. And this involvement and knowledge of her expertise led to her being called upon to consult both nationally and internationally. Like you, I remember when Roy Peters was the state director, and he led our system in working with Oklahoma State University to establish the Francis Tuttle Endowed Chair. Roy's vision was that we would have a continued presence representing CTE at Oklahoma State University. And that person would be someone who was nationally known and respected by his or her peers. When given an opportunity to make a recommendation for consideration for this prestigious position, I could think of no one better suited than Belinda. Francis Tuttle would be very proud of her. Belinda is a bionic woman who, in spite of the metal in her body, continues to dance through life. Even though she's officially retired, she's often called upon to share her expertise in other states and schools across the country. In addition, Belinda and the love of her life, Juan, travel. They volunteer in services, community services, and participate in lots of activities and count their blessings every day. I consider knowing Belinda as one of my blessings, and with pleasure, I present for induction into the Oklahoma Career and Technology Education Hall of Fame, Dr. Belinda Cole.
When Belinda Cole is around, there's a good chance there will be sparks.
When I was a school counselor all those years ago in Moore, I saw a lot of kids that didn't have any direction. And I really saw the CareerTech system be successful with some of those students that people had given up on. This guy is just no good, he's never going to amount to anything. And once you get that interest and connect that spark and show them a way to use their interest, you just see people bloom. I know people say that all the time, but it's really true.
She spent more than 3 decades creating sparks for students through the Oklahoma CareerTech system, and she really bought into the mission.
I love the people that I worked with, love the system. I just found a home in the CareerTech system and just loved being there.
She built one of the best vocational guidance systems in the country from the ground up. The division grew to include initiatives such as temporary assistance for needy families, high schools that work, tech centers that work, and more.
You may have to work a little harder, you may have to go a little bit longer, but there are a few dead ends if you really want it. And so To me, all of those things together provided that support system for students to realize their potential and that they really had the opportunity to create their own lives. They don't have to have the same life that they started with.
In 1997, she was Oklahoma's School to Work Coordinator, and that initiative sparked fierce opposition. But Belinda didn't back down because it was all about the students.
We saw schools like Putnam City that really embraced it and did plans of study and got students out on internships. And we saw the numbers improve. Students were being kept in school. They were achieving better. They were graduating at a higher rate at a time when our graduation rate was not very good. And so unfortunately, when the money went away, a lot of those programs went away. But to a lot of schools' credits, they kept some of those things going on, even without funding. So it just was a matter of right to me. It was just the right thing to do for students.
Belinda also believed cooperative alliances were good for students. Again, she stood her ground. Because if two groups of people are willing to stay at the table and talk, just about anything can be solved.
If you can come together on that one thing of let's do what's best for students, then you begin to, peel away the objections. Because if it all comes back to what do we do that's best for students, then you can get rid of the ego, you can get rid of the tradition, you can get rid of a lot of things and come back to what's going to make a difference for students. So I think that's what we were able to do.
Belinda is the first counselor to be inducted into the CareerTech Foundation Hall of Fame, and her induction follows a number of prestigious honors, including ACTE Educator of the Year and the Arch Alexander Award.
Both of them were just pretty special, each in their own way. ACTE because it was an organization that I really care a lot about, still a member, and that was pretty special being chosen nationwide. And then the Arch Alexander Award, I mean, who would not aspire to be like Arch Alexander? He was such a great example for all of us in Oklahoma.
Even in her off time, the self-described parrot head is helping others. She loves to go to Jimmy Buffett concerts and is a member of the Central Oklahoma Parrot Head Association, a group whose motto is Party with Purpose.
And so we have a good time, but we also raise money for the Humane Society, for Habitat for Humanity, the Sheltered Workshop for adults with disabilities, and more.
Belinda's technically retired now and spends a lot of time traveling and hanging out with fellow parrot heads. But she will always be an advocate for CareerTech and the mission she bought into 30-some years ago.
Helping students find their passion and find their passion in areas that are going to be viable in the future.
Belinda Cole, 2017 inductee into the CareerTech Hall of Fame.
Well, that's a humbling experience, just seeing all the hairstyles from way back when. Roy, that picture, we both had dark hair, so yeah, it's been a while ago. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank my two partners in crime, the nominators, Kelly Arrington and Robin Schott, and definitely the foundation for allowing me this honor, providing this honor. I'd also thank my mentor and friend, Ann Benson, for inducting me, and she truly has been both a mentor and a friend. If Gina Howery and Fern, you were on that initial interview committee, I don't know if you remember that, who hired me. So if Gina Howery and Fern Green Bowling and Chuck Hopkins and Dr. Tuttle had not taken a chance on me many, many years ago when I still had dark hair, none of this marvelous career would have been possible. One of the most, out of all the awards, one of the most personal that caused me to make that ugly cry that was on one of the slides was when the OKACT Guidance Division named the Career Excellence Award after me, unbeknownst to me, so it was very special. So I'd like to thank family, friends, and colleagues for attending tonight, and it's been so wonderful. That's the bad thing about retirement. You don't get to see the friends that you've worked with, for so often and so long, on an everyday basis. But we even have a representative from SREB, and I'm still working a little bit for SREB. Ivy, thank you for being here tonight. The CareerTech system offered an opportunity for learning, for leadership, and growth. And this growth has provided a career of which I'm very proud. But I'm also proud of all the colleagues that I've met, the friends that I've made that will last a lifetime. And I will always be very close to this system. It's a system I love deeply, always will, and will always be a part of. So I will always cherish that time that I've had. The State Department is a special place. I've worked many places. Moore Norman came pretty close, but the State Department at the time I was there was an entity that provided a lot of warmth, a lot of laughter, a lot of love, and a lot of longtime friendships. It's a special place for which I will always be grateful. Thank you for providing this honor for me. Thank you for this night.
Our next inductee this evening is Dr. Fern Green Bowling. Presenting her award this evening is Dr. Luann Hargrave.
I'm privileged tonight to introduce Dr. Fern Bowling as one of the 2017 CareerTech Hall of Fame inductees. And also, she is so relieved that I only have 3 minutes to do this introduction. It is dangerous. I do want to share, though, I want you to take a look at your program tonight because you'll find the bios, and of course we do not want to repeat the information that's already provided because it does give such a great outline of what all of our inductees have achieved through their lifetime of work. My intention tonight, though, is to share a little bit about Fern as far as the characteristics I think that have helped her to get to where she is today. One is the love of family. Her family is very important. She was asked years ago to come to the department by Dr. Vic Van Hook. And she told him no. And the reason she told him no is because she had a child and she wanted him to be old enough before she assumed any responsibility of travel for work. And so it was about 10 years later before they asked again, and she said yes. I'm afraid if they asked me one time, they wouldn't ask me again. Another thing about Fern is she's a pioneer because when she was working in the field, she took jobs that were not the traditional jobs. She taught for a while, but at the same time, she became one of the first cooperative office coordinators in the state. And that's a very big role, trying to develop a new program. The other one was she was the first equity coordinator. Fern was a pioneer when it comes to equity. She was doing equity when it wasn't cool. And so she did a lot of things, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that still has diversity moving down the road in the CareerTech system. She also has been awfully involved in the Southeast Oklahoma Entrepreneurship Project and other numerous kinds of work as far as being a pioneer. Her leadership, I don't think there's an organization that she was a member that she didn't later become a chair, a board of director, or some important role in that particular association. And in one case, she actually created one with the help of Dr. Tuttle. It's called Career and Technical Educational Equity Council, which went on to develop National Alliance for Partnership in Equity, which is a national consortium of states, which still provides diversity training across the United States. And it's one of the only ones that is truly devoted to CareerTech. The other associations that she was involved with and was a leader is, of course, the Oklahoma Council for Local Administrators. She still serves on the board for the Rural Enterprise of Oklahoma. So these kinds of organizations and many others, she created, for example, the Oklahoma Women Education Administration, you may remember that. Those were the days when we had to have such things. We no longer need those, but that was back then. So she was one of the founding people of that organization. But all in all, she still serves on numerous organizations and leadership roles. But another thing that causes her to stand out among others is she's very genuine. Whenever you would go and travel with Fern, as I had the opportunity to do across the state and out of state, and in fact in Washington, D.C., we would walk into an office and they would, whoever we were there to see, whether it was a legislator or somebody else, they would show us a waiting room and ask us if we needed water. Fern did not use that time to sit there and wait or chat to me. She spent that time talking to the secretary. It didn't matter what your status was. She really wanted to know all about you. A year later, you could go back to that same office and those people remembered Fern. And as a result, she truly does care about people. She has done that her whole career. And she's very optimistic. One thing that I laughed when we found out we needed to be here early tonight. I said, that's the way that all of the inductees are here on time and their presenters. And I said, and so I was talking to her son, Mike, who's one of the main reasons that he's her heart. He was laughing. He said, well, that got Mother here on time. And but there was a time in which she was working in Washington, D.C., and she was doing a committee work, and she got to the airline place, the airport, a little late. And she was traveling, I don't know if people remember Linda Wilson, but she was traveling with Linda Wilson. And that was in the days in which they actually had steps up to the airplane. Well, they'd already shut the door. But that didn't stop Fern. She climbed those steps with Linda saying, we can't do this, we can't do this. She knocked on the door of the plane. The pilot turned and looked and saw her and got tickled and had the stewardess open up the door. And she got on and flew on and got back home. So, you know, she's just forever optimistic, loving, giving. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, former supervisor, family member of choice, and friend, Dr. Fern Bowling.
I worked my way through OSU, working in Whitehurst, and then I worked in the zoology department. After I finished my master's degree, well then, I had a call from Dr. Arch Alexander asking me if I would like to participate in the EPDA program, which was the Educational Development Program. That helped me finish my degree. So my passion is now to help other people who want a better education to get scholarships and funding to further do that. And I do that through the Francis Tuttle Foundation, where I'm president, and also with PEO. It's a women's organization that provides money for women to continue their education. That was a very interesting role, equity coordinators, because it was new to the nation. I worked with coordinators from all the 50 states. I could see what kind of agency we had, that we really had an outstanding agency when I compared what we did in Oklahoma as compared to what other states were doing. And Dr. Tuttle was a wonderful director to give me the latitude to do some things that other equity coordinators could not do in the nation. And one of those was to go to Washington, and we would visit our congressional staff. We did that a lot through what would be today ACTE. Oklahoma Council on Vocational Education, I was selected as the executive director. It was a 13-member board, and in that we worked with the agency and cooperated with them and enhanced what Oklahoma could do for vocational education through that council. I serve on the CareerTech Foundation board. As a matter of fact, I was the president when they had the first Hall of Fame inductees to participate, and I thoroughly enjoy that because that also provides scholarships through our foundation to students. I worked as a staff member on the Southeast Entrepreneur Project program, which Congress and Watkins came to Dr. Tuttle and said, would you work with me to help start this program for economic development in my counties in Southeast Oklahoma? And Dr. Tuttle said yes. They have a board of directors now, and I've served on that board of directors over 30 years. Now we work with the entire state, not just the southeast counties, and it's providing funds and loans and expertise to not only small business people, but there is a women's business center that's headed by Dr. Barbara Rackley that help women entrepreneurs. And then there's a Native American program located in Tulsa. So it's expanded greatly, and there is not another program in the U.S. designed exactly the way that Congressman designed that. So it's abundantly helped the people of Oklahoma. I think what our schools have done, the kind of programs that they offer, is absolutely fabulous, and many of our citizens still do not realize what wonderful institutions we have and training programs that we have in those schools. And it just makes me sick when a young person turns down the opportunity not to attend one of their programs. Think of all the people that have gone before me and who are in the Hall of Fame, and they're marvelous people, and most of them I do know. But I've had such marvelous opportunities that I guess someone recognized that I had served in different capacities in career and technical education.
Fern Green Bowling, 2017 inductee into the Oklahoma CareerTech Hall of Fame.
This is an awesome honor, and I am so appreciative of those who nominated me and the selection committee, but we have to give Dr. Roy Peters credit for this Hall of Fame because it was during his administration that he asked that we have this and this be designed. So Roy, thank you so much for that opportunity that you've given so many people through the years. And what Lou didn't know on that, stopping that airplane, I'd had experience doing that. The first time I did it was in Stillwater. I was in an accounting lab, and I stayed as long as possible, and it was a little too long because the plane was at the end of the runway ready to take off when I got there. And I said, "Can I stop that plane?" And they said, "Go ahead." So I went out there, and I waved to the pilot, and he stopped and put down the stairs. And I got on that plane, and he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "To a dance in Dallas." So that kind of experience pays off sometimes because the other was work-related that Linda and I were on. And Tom, I want to tell you thank you. I'll never forget the day that Dr. Tom Thomas came down the hall in the planning division, and he was holding a piece of paper, and it was a job position. And they had mailed it to Tom, and Tom looked at me and he said, "Vern, this is your job, not mine." And that was with the Oklahoma Council on Vocational Education. And I thoroughly loved that job, working with those 13 members that different governors had appointed to serve. And Suzette Rhodes and her husband, Jack, are here tonight, and she served many years on that council, in addition to also serving on the Francis Tuttle board and being a past president of that board. So Suzette, thank you. That was great. And to the other honorees tonight, I say congratulations. I worked with all of you at some point in time in some capacity, and you're very, very deserving. And it's so glad to be here with you. And I want to recognize my family because they are important, and the photographer said, "Well, you have the largest group," and a few of you, we missed you getting in the picture. But would they please stand? My son from the Panhandle of Texas, Mike Green, my fiance, Bob White from Stillwater, and my younger brother, David, that used to throw dirt clods at me when we were kids, and his wife, Glenda, and my nephew, Nick, and his wife, Tracy Allen, and at the middle table at the back, Dana and Jeff Davis. Will you stand, too? Thank you all so much for being here. And, you know, I want to thank all the state directors Dr. Tuttle and, of course, Dr. Alexander are not with us anymore, but they were marvelous. And we've had excellent state directors, except one that only lasted about 6 months. But Marcy, we're so proud of you, and congratulations for your recent award. And I think we have the most awesome education system there is, because we give the opportunity to people to better their lives. And I'm so thankful that I've had the opportunity to work in all the different capacities and serve. And I still enjoy serving on foundations where we benefit others. Thank you for this lovely night.
Our third inductee for the evening is Dr. James Strait. Presenting this honor is Brady McCullough.
Good evening. In order to do justice in introducing Dr. Strait, I think you have to do more than just review a resume. And the resume is printed in your program, and I'd encourage you to do that because quite an illustrious career. But I think to properly introduce him, you focus on what he felt was important. Dr. James Strait built Autry Technology Center on relationships. That's what he felt was most important. That's how he could bring that school to where he wanted it to be, and I think the relationships throughout his professional and personal life are what he's always valued. I need your help tonight, because I'm going to review some of those different relationships that Dr. Strait has been involved in throughout his career and his personal life. I promise that I'm going to stay within the 3 minutes, but it's going to take some audience participation to get me through this this evening, okay? As diverse as this group is, there's several of you out there that have known Dr. Strait from different places, and he was in different positions as you were too. So I'm going to go through a list of titles, and as I go through those titles, if that's how you knew Dr. Strait, I'm going to ask you to stand. You won't have to stand very long, I promise. Okay? Husband. Jim, I'll tell you that's a relief because I was afraid there might have been more than one. And had there been, we had a real problem. This wasn't starting right. There's only one more I worry about, and I'll let you know when we're free and clear, bud, okay? Father, you're safe. Peer, superintendent, rancher, chairman, boss, administrator, innovator, friend, grandfather, Citizen of the Year, mentor, Autry, great granddad, ladies and gentlemen, the final one, the newest inductee to the Oklahoma CareerTech Hall of Fame, Dr. James W. Strait.
As the superintendent of Autry Technology Center from 1991 to 2015, Jim Strait was never one to take long vacations.
I just didn't think it was appropriate to be gone for very long. You never know what's going to happen, you know. You can leave and everything's hunky-dory, and in today's world, somebody can throw a hand grenade in the outhouse pretty quick.
Perhaps that's why, since he retired, Strait has remained engaged in the Enid community, spending most of his days now ranching with his son and grandchildren.
We raise registered Angus cattle, so it's a family operation. We run about 100 head of cattle, so that pretty well keeps me busy.
Busy is something Jim Strait has always been, ever since his early days teaching in Missouri.
I was involved with Marketing Ed and DECA, the Distributive Education Clubs of America. I got to know Gene Callahan, Kay Martin, Bruce Gray, Tom Friedemann, Joe Robinson. We were affectionately called the DE Mafia. You know, we grew up together. Our kids grew up together.
Strait joined the staff of Great Plains Technology Center in 1981 and took the helm at Autry Technology Center 10 years later, helping that center find its footing and direction.
When you look at communities like Enid, Garfield County, Northwest Oklahoma, we're never going to land a GM or a Delta Faucets or a Microsoft, so the whole concept was you got to home grow our own industry.
So that is where Strait and his staff focused their energies, building what is considered today a model for CareerTech industry partnerships.
We put together what we call the Business and Industry Forum, and we'd invite in local business and industry leaders, the movers and shakers, and just quite frankly ask them, what do we need to do? And most of them weren't very bashful about it. They told us what training they needed. So that just kept expanding to the point where I used them as an advisory group in terms of equipment, programs, services. The industry side just exploded. And as part of that, the secondary and full-time adult enrollment followed because the local industry realized that the services that we could provide.
During his tenure, enrollment grew from 2,000 to 16,000 served annually. Strait also helped launch the Autry Educational Foundation, which has today placed more than $500,000 in an endowment benefiting students in need. And Strait was a founding board member of what is today the Enid Regional Development Alliance, housed in a building that bears his name. But Strait's efforts with local industry provided yet another benefit as he worked to find support at the Oklahoma Capitol.
If you take some local leading industry down and they sit down with your local legislators and quite frankly tell them what's needed, they listen. And within that Executive Officer Network group, that represented probably close to 80% of the total employment in our community, so it was huge.
All this success because Strait never grew satisfied and never shied away from difficult conversations.
I've always said we have one product to sell, and that's our student. And if we turn out a welder and he goes out into industry and he can't do what we say he can, we fail that industry and that student. So I think it's critical to have that open communication and the frank discussions.
Jim Strait, 2017 inductee into the Oklahoma CareerTech Hall of Fame.
What an evening, folks. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Brady. You know, he's come into Autry Tech and has done a tremendous job, and I'm sure you'll continue to do a tremendous job. I would like to congratulate all the other honorees. I think I've worked with all of them for a long time. We've had a lot of fun together, particularly Dr. Tom and I. He's got hair. I wish I did, but seriously, congratulations. I want to say a special thank you to those that come from Enid. I have a huge number here, and I love you all dearly. And I have a few friends from when I was at Great Plains. Dr. Bridges and his bride, and, he was my dentist, and I still got all my teeth, George, so you did a good job. I've been fortunate to always have a great board. You know, as superintendents, some of you have had some interesting challenges, but thank God I've always had a great board. We had some ups and downs financially, personnel-wise, but they stood behind me 100%, and that's what it's all about. Faculty and staff, you couldn't ask for a better faculty and staff, about 106 of them. And the management team I had was always extreme. We always worked together, and sure, some days we loved each other a little bit better than others, but that's what I told the faculty and staff. We all have brothers and sisters. I have 2 brothers. Some days I liked one better than I did the other. That's kind of the way the family at CareerTech. With that, I've already had, Brady had my family stand up, but I'd like to introduce them. My wife, Sharon. Stand up, dear. Can you believe that woman's put up with me for 52 years? I still can't believe it. My son, Jim Jr., and his wife, Janet. Number 1 grandson, Justin, and his wife, Lexi. And our special little straight, Leighton Jane, great-granddaughter. Number 2 grandson, Jared, and his special friend, Victoria Chapman. Love them all dearly. And I know the system's in great hands. Dr. Back, where you at? She put up with me for 19 years and just about had me trained when she decided to move to the State Department. So, Marcy, we love you, proud of you, doing a great job. With that, I think, hope you all have a great Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year.
Our 4th inductee for the 2017 CareerTech Hall of Fame is Dr. Tom Thomas. Presenting tonight's award is Clarence Fortney.
Good evening. It is my honor to induct Dr. Tom Thomas into the Oklahoma CareerTech Hall of Fame. Yesterday we had the opportunity to listen to John Maxwell. He was in Lawton and was quite a privilege. And during his discussion, he gave a definition. And the definition that he gave was, great leaders have 2 things in common. And as I listened to that, I began to hear and remember working with Dr. Tom. First thing that they have, that great leaders have, is that they see more than others see. Great leaders see more than others see. The second thing is they see it before others see it. And as he gave that definition, I thought, wow, that's Dr. Tom. Because that's the way he looked at things. He saw it differently and would see it before others, whether it was numbers or what needed to be done to support our system or our organization. Now, I was told not to duplicate too many things that are on the video, because you'll see the video here in just a second. But I have to mention to you, and I think all of you know, that Dr. Tom is a numbers guy. And when you look at numbers, he's like Rain Man. I don't know what happens, but those numbers just come off the page. And I look at them, and it doesn't mean the same thing to me. But I'll tell you, there are a couple of instances in the 28 years that I worked directly with Dr. Tom that even though the numbers said this is not what we need to do, Tom spoke. Actually, he made his decision from the heart. And he did what was right not only for the student, but our faculty and our staff. And for that, I've always been very appreciative of him. Now, Dr. Tom looks at things through different lenses. And, you know, we talk about being the smart guy, and he goes, I'm not the smart guy. And I go, well, Tom, yeah, you are. I mean, you're kind of the different guy in the room that looks at it a little bit differently. And my earliest recollection of having Dr. Tom and at least a conversation with him I was in a welding shop, and he comes up and he starts talking about body-centered cubic lattice. Anybody in the room know what that is? Fred, raise your hand back there. He knows. We talked about it earlier. That's the molecular structure of metal. And it's like, why in, excuse my French, why in the hell would he know anything about that? And he goes, well, for an elective class, I took a metallurgy course at OSU, and I thought, people who are studying metallurgy don't even want to take that class. So I thought, man, this guy, he's willing to take a challenge or at least take the opportunity to learn. In putting our packet together for the nomination of Dr. Tom, I called Dr. Friedemann, and I checked with Dr. Friedemann to make sure I could say this, but I called Dr. Friedemann, and I'm going to read it because it says, Dr. Friedemann wrote, and I quote this, it says, I recall Jim Nesbitt, who was the superintendent at Great Plains Technology Center, introducing the staff and faculty at Great Plains. And during that introduction, he introduced Dr. Tom to the group as being the smartest man in CareerTech. And you know what? Nobody questioned or argued or were offended by that because it was true. So that kind of led us to believe that we had somebody very special. Now here's another thing. If you had the opportunity to visit or to travel with Dr. Tom, the one thing that Dr. Tom always does would be to scope out the dining facilities of the community or town he was going to go visit. Glenn, where are you at? Glenn Cosper? Glenn does the same thing. Those two are like cut from the same cloth. And so they always know where they're going to eat. They always have reservations made, and I appreciated that about Tom in planning and getting things organized. But as smart as Dr. Tom is, and I don't know if he remembers this, but we were in Stillwater one morning having breakfast, and he had a carton of milk. And that carton of milk, he goes, I wish they would make a carton of milk where it'd be easy to open. Well, I look at it, and I said, well, if you'll open the side that has the arrow on it, it's pretty easy to open. And he goes, oh, yeah, okay. So now I'm going to give you a number. The number's 28. Now, if I tell you 28 and say 28 years, I could say, well, 28 years of a bad marriage would be a long time. But I can tell you 28 years of working with Dr. Tom is how many years I had the opportunity to work directly with him. And it was 28 great years. And I can tell you 3 occasions in that 28 years I corrected Dr. Tom. And I've got it noted in a calendar. I don't have it before me, but I can prove it to you. But one of the things I always appreciate about Dr. Tom is that he let us, and we as faculty and staff that worked under Dr. Tom to be able to get things done, he gave us that reign and that opportunity to do that. As he was leaving the tech center at Great Plains, the one advice he gave me, he said, was, you've got to make decisions that are right for the system. It's not about this school. It's about what's doing right for the system. We can make decisions that's right for our schools, but we've got to make decisions right for our system. So, with that said, it is my honor to induct Dr. Tom Thomas into the Oklahoma CareerTech Hall of Fame. Tom?
Tom Thomas is a numbers guy.
Back when I was going to school, math was easy for me, statistics came easy.
So when he went to work in Oklahoma's Department of Vocational and Technical Education,
I went into research planning and evaluation and kind of grew up at the State Department. I started there when I was 22.
and began a career using data to guide decisions.
And we had a lot of opportunity for growth. We were very well liked by the legislature at the time, so we were well funded, we were able to grow. And having that research function available let us do some cutting edge things that, and people said, and I didn't see it that way, but they said I had a knack of looking at that statistical data, finding the patterns, and being able to explain to people what that meant in everyday language so they could use it for decision making.
A skill Tom even applies to his personal life.
My wife and I had a daughter, and when I was born, 3 of my grandparents had already passed. So it was important for me to get my daughter around my parents, and of course by then my parents had given up on ever having grandchildren.
So Tom headed home to Lawton and Great Plains Technology Center.
It was perfect timing for me because Sarah was 6 months old, and I came, and Kenneth took a chance.
And while the job was new, Tom's data-driven approach remained the same.
I saw every year 500 kids drop out of Comanche County schools.
The edge pieces. You're going to have a total for all that.
As you start looking at those kids, they're not bad kids, they're not different kids. It was a relevancy issue for a lot of them.
Take your tape measures, you're going to have to get pen and paper, okay? Go finish that project.
At Great Plains, we got out of the box a lot of times based upon not always just data, but the need to do things for the community that really weren't, some people would consider not the core role of CareerTech. But the local board here let us do them anyway, and I think, like the SCORE program. SCORE was dropout recovery, and it was not a big deal for CareerTech when we started. And I think it's worked well for us. You know, kids will always ask you, why do I have to learn algebra? How am I ever going to use algebra? Well, you can take them out into the carpentry shop and show them to figure out the length of a rafter. You need to know the run and the rise, and it's Pythagorean's theorem that gives you that. So to me, it was need, and it was also that, if not us, who? If they've dropped out of high school and we don't do something with them, who's left in the community to do something with them? If the military won't take them, where are they going to end up? They're going to end up in another system we don't want them in. That's way more expensive than anything we've ever done in CareerTech. So it was need, and really I have, over the years, I've come to embrace the underdog, I think. Those kids that really I felt left out, don't find anything for them, parents aren't treating them well, parents aren't around, they need to have family somewhere, and SCORE became that family for a lot of them.
Helping students and the community they live in.
If you've got 500 kids a year non-productive in your communities, that's labor force you really need, and you need to engage them and give them skills that are marketable. And usually what I told everybody was, you know, they just want what we have. They want a good job. And we're in a position to give it to them. They don't know the pathway. They just know that what I'm getting in high school is not working for me. I'm out of here. And that's a horrible decision, but it's a decision made daily. And so, you know, if we can be there to lift them up, re-engage them in the academics, give them a reason to learn the academics, to me that was a win-win-win-win deal.
After 40-plus years as a CareerTech educator, 6 of those as Great Plains superintendent, Tom Thomas retired in July of 2016 and headed out to see some country.
The retirement was short-lived. I retired July 1st. Early August, my son and I took off on a long motorcycle ride, 7,000 miles, 29 days, every state west of Oklahoma, plus Alberta, British Columbia. We made it as far as Vancouver.
When Tom got a phone call from the Lawton Fort Sill Economic Development Corporation asking him to come home and lead the group through a transition.
I came back from the motorcycle ride on Saturday and started down here on Monday.
Guiding the organization with the same data-driven approach that served him so well at CareerTech.
One of the reasons I was willing to take this on, I got here in 1986, and I've worked with every economic developer in Lawton since that time. And what I saw was that most often, aside from the land, the facility, what businesses are interested in is, do you have people with the skill sets I need to operate my plant and keep my plant running. And so we always got involved in economic development deals at Great Plains in Lawton. And to me, it's just a symbiotic relationship. You can't do great economic development without CareerTech being a piece of that.
So no matter the job, Tom does the numbers, always aware that behind every number is a person.
I want a lot of families to have a better life than they had before they came to Great Plains or any CareerTech. You know, and again, all they want is what we have, and that's a good job.
Tom Thomas, 2017 inductee into the Oklahoma CareerTech.
Well, thank you. Great thanks to my friends at Great Plains. They knew I would never apply for such an award. They did it without telling me, and I'm happy they did. You know, this Hall of Fame started 4 years after I left the State Department and went to Great Plains, and I'd walk down the hall and I'd look at those pictures, and most of them I knew, but some of them I didn't. I'd always ask myself, I wonder what they did to get on that wall. When I went to work at the State Department, it was kind of happenstance. I was in an engineering design class. Professor Gerald McLean came up and said, hey, I have a friend that has a job you might be interested in. And that friend was Barry Ballard at the State Department of CareerTech, State Department of VOTEC back then. And he worked in the technical education division, the college division. We worked in colleges back then. And I got a job being an itinerant instructor. I went around to different colleges and worked in those engineering design programs, teaching them how to use a computer to do drafting tasks. Came back and I got to work with Dr. Tuttle, Dr. Alexander, Vic Van Hook, R.L. Beatty, Norman Filtz, just the whole crew that was there at the time, Dwight Stoddard, a lot of others. I worked in the research planning and evaluation. Dr. Bill Stevenson had come from Ohio State University, the Ohio State University, to be the director of that. Chuck Hopkins was really my first mentor. And, you know, when you face this crowd and you say, what am I going to say to these folks who all have illustrious careers? If you know me, you know it's the last sermon that I can give. So there's a sermon here, and that sermon has to do with mentorship. Take somebody under your wing and mentor them. Chuck taught me so much about vocational education that I'm always forever grateful. Set me on a career path. Became the state planner, and as you saw in the video, one thing about the video, it reminds me about 3 years ago, I was at a conference in Canada, and there was only 3 people from the U.S. there. And I worked really hard to convince those folks that they had the accent, not me. Watching that video, I think I was wrong about that. But so when Sarah was born, I have to thank Dr. Joe Robinson, who was at Great Plains. He left and made a hole. And I knew Jim Strait from working with Fern's Advisory Council. No, that was Jim Nesbitt. I knew Jim Strait from working with the superintendent's group. They let me occasionally get out and work with the superintendent's group. And they both told me there's a job at Great Plains. The timing was perfect. And so I remember interviewing with Mr. Bridges and those 2 guys in the old hotel that's now Frontier Engineering out west of town. And there's some irony to that story. Mr. Bridges did take a chance on me. 1964 to 1967, I spent my high school career avoiding Mr. Bridges for alleged dress code violations. I found they built sidewalks on the outside of the school so you could avoid the office for class changes. So here we are 19 years later, and Kenneth's looking at me and looking at these guys going, 19 years later, and he looks worse now than he did then. But he took a chance, and you know, I'm forever appreciative. What I learned from Chuck was a whole lot about vocational education, career education. What I learned from Kenneth was whatever you do, do what's good for the student first. A lot of other things. Kenneth was a second mentor. And Kenneth, at one point, really encouraged me to get the superintendent's certificate. Now, there was a catch to that because I wasn't a certified teacher, so I have to thank Ann Benson for working with Sandy Garrett. And I may have the only technical education teacher certification in the state. It's not tech ed, it's not T&I, it's technical education. So that led me to get to take the superintendent's test. Sarah was so impressed, my daughter, that you only had to make a 70 on that test to be a superintendent. So at the time, you could be a superintendent with a D. I did a little better than that. What I learned from our board is that we have great power in our system and that we can use it to change our communities. Look at the issues in your community and you address it. Now, the one that was highlighted there was SCORE, and Tom Horsler is here. Tom is the real deal SCORE guy. He's the one that saved those kids. I was in a position to support that and to provide resources. And so I did, and that became really my passion is the underdog. We have a program at Great Plains, I still say we, that works with people in halfway houses, recovering addicts, giving them job experience, working with Goodyear on projects. They get paid, they get work experience. So look around your community and see what the problems are. There's not a community in the state that doesn't have a dropout program. There's not a community in the state that doesn't have substance abuse problems. How have you used your power to address that? And one last thing, you know, I wrote a whole speech and can't do it. What I learned from Jim Strait, who was another mentor, sometimes you gotta get loud to be heard. Sometimes you gotta jerk a chain or two. What I learned from Jim Nesbitt, I learned a lot from Jim Nesbitt about doing what's right for the student, getting involved in the community, and how not to get emotional when you get in the heat of battle. And I learned a lot. I never got good at it. But I learned a lot from him about that. The other thing I want to say is that you never know when you say something to someone that makes a big difference in their life. I've had people come up and tell me things I've said to them that caused them to go on a different path. I never knew that happened. One story, and I'll end. Back, I don't know when it was, when the School of Science and Math regional centers were started up. Senator Ted Fisher from the Drumright area was the author of that bill. And so I knew Central Tech was getting the first one. And even though I'm pretty apolitical, I knew we had Lloyd Benson, who was Speaker of the House, so I determined that Great Plains was going to get the second one. So I went around to all the superintendents and got their blessing to do this. Went to see Don Davis, president of Cameron University. And Don said, sure, I'd love to support it, but you know those kids are going to make it anyway. So, what do you mean, Don? He goes, those kids can make it in a cave with a candle and a book. Got me to thinking about, who do we serve? One of the big powers of a superintendent is proposing a budget to the board and allocating resources to different things that you can do. Now, a lot of us have a hard time stopping doing things to make room for other things. But when you make that decision, Don Davis's, his words resonated, and I came up with a triage model in my mind for how we allocate resources, or how we might consider allocating resources. Now, all I knew about triage was MASH. I was a big MASH fan. And so you got, you know, the guys that are not hurt that bad, they can wait. You got the guys that are going to die anyway, no matter what you do. And then you got those guys in the middle that you really can make a difference where they're going to live or die. Well, in our situation, the people that are going to die anyway are just the people that aren't ready for us. The SCORE kids that come in because grandma sent them, they still have an attitude, they still have substance abuse issues, they're not treating that. You know the kind. And then you've got the upper end that are going to make it anyway. And then you've got the kids that we can change their lives, or the adults that we can change their lives. And I think that's what Great Plains got good at, was looking at community need, applying that triage model without talking about it, and allocating our resources where we can make the most difference. So in closing, I'd say you have a lot of power in your community. Think about where you can make that best difference with the time and the resources you have. You know, I was shocked when they told me this. I didn't know they were applying. They did the same thing with the Francis Tuttle. As a matter of fact, they had to tell me because it was my last August conference. They were afraid I was going to go to Sturgis. So Clarence came in and he goes, "Hey, why don't you take my haircut appointment?" It's like, what is he up to? So, you know, I'm forever grateful to my friends at Great Plains, to the mentors I've had at Great Plains, to Kenneth. I love the State Department, but being on the front line, seeing those lives change, there's nothing like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, our final inductee this evening is Joan Wellborn. Presenting her award is Connie Pelton.
One thing about doing a presentation like this, when you're the last speaker, just please wake up a little bit. And I didn't fall up the stairs to wake you up. Joan's life philosophy is summed up by a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson: "To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to leave the world a better place, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. By this measure, Joan has been very successful." I'm sure this is just one of the stories you've heard about Joan and speeding and getting tickets. This one I already had down, but then her daughter told me one. I'm going to throw this one away, and I'm going to tell the one that the daughter told, because Joan actually told me the same one tonight sitting at the table. Joan's daughter, 16 years old, just learning to drive. They're driving down the road, and Joan looks at her and she says, "Really?" And she says, "I'm going the speed limit." Joan said, "That's the problem. You need to go a little bit faster." Sure enough, in just a minute, her daughter looks in the rearview mirror. She's getting pulled over. She said she's got the policeman chewing in this ear, and Joan is over here on this side laughing and pointing at her. Joan, really. Now, for a few comments from Joan's friends, clients, and employees. Joan has been a strong advocate for CareerTech and her clients. She's always been proactive in having her staff meet database changes and will be greatly missed. She's been our best unsung hero. Joan's customer service was unparalleled. She always worked above and beyond what a software company would do for a client, keeping abreast of the law changes without any prompting. Joan has been on the CareerTech Foundation board for over 20 years and has supported CareerTech 100%. The word I have for Joan is kind. She was always ready to help and never made us feel like we were asking goofy questions. Several of us have said, if you ever get rid of AWPC, we quit. She has been accommodating and gracious, and helped make our jobs easier. She is a champion and true friend of CareerTech. Joan and ADPC should be a CareerTech acronym, representing her longevity, partnership, and personality. Joan keeps it real. This next thing is something from your ADPC family. Your reputable character and devotion to others in all avenues of life make you so well deserving of this award. As our superior leader and lifetime friend, we want to thank you for the many cherished memories and for doing things your way. You've been our guiding light, and we are indeed better people because of you. Retirement means no pressure, no stress, no headache, unless you're golfing or watching the Bedlam game. Boomer Sooner! Oh, sorry, we meant Go Pokes, from your ADPC family. Joan, I stand before you tonight to say thank you for everyone you have mentored, encouraged, and inspired during your career. And congratulations for being inducted into the CareerTech Hall of Fame.
Joan Welburn's story, like so many throughout the CareerTech system, has humble beginnings.
I was young, single, 2 kids, and no money, so it was just an opportunity to learn something new.
Joan was working at a bank when she took a night job for Charles Greenwood at ADPC.
He was doing school work for schools, so he hired me to process his work at night, and then I eventually quit the bank and went to work for Mr. Greenwood full-time at ADPC, and that was in 1961, so that's the only place I've ever worked since.
It was the first company in Oklahoma to offer computerized financial accounting for schools and tech centers alike, and in the 60s, that looked very different than it does today.
Oh, you wouldn't believe it. People know now how old I am. We had regular old card punch machines that we ran. You know, our data entry was all done on card punches. We had big mainframe computers that took up, monstrous room. The schools mailed us their work, and then we data entered it and put it into a format and printed out their printouts and mailed them back to them.
Joan started in data entry but quickly moved up the ranks, becoming an office manager just a few years later. It was here that she began working personally with many people throughout Oklahoma's budding vocational education system. But without modern conveniences like email or video conferencing, there was only one way to forge those relationships.
I decided that driving from Woodward one day to Broken Bow the next day and never being home, that I'd just learned to fly. So that's when I took training to be a pilot and actually got my pilot's license, and then I started flying to the schools.
Joan took the helm of ADPC in 1984. As both the company and CareerTech grew, ADPC continued to provide valuable financial accounting services, payroll, personnel systems, and provided a helping hand to navigate the, at times, complicated challenges that come with managing school funding.
I have never been to a school that didn't appreciate our services and haven't been, very, very welcoming about it. One thing that I've always done, and I probably learned that from my dad when I was little, don't tell somebody you'll do something you can't do. I think that we have tried to keep current with everything and help them to never have a bad audit and to keep things in line.
Another challenge Joan faced was keeping current with technology. Those large mainframe computers and punch cards were soon outdated. Luckily, she knew just the right people to ask as technology became better, faster, and smaller.
Listen to the people that you work for. They usually know. The CareerTechs will tell you. They're the best clients I have as far as that part is concerned. The CareerTechs are really good about telling me what they want ahead of time, and we get it for them.
The number one thing Joan has valued above all else has been the relationships and friends she's made along the way. including with some of CareerTech's legends, like Francis Tuttle.
Well, you know, he's just a nice guy, and he really liked fried fish. I absolutely think the better you know the people you're working for, and the better they know you, the better y'all can communicate and do the things that really need to be done. I just have absolutely the most amazing friends all over the state. I could go, it's kind of a funny story because my husband had asked me, well, where are you staying tonight? And well, I'm staying with so-and-so, because I didn't stay in hotels because it was my friend away from here. But
Today, Joan is enjoying a well-deserved retirement. She recently sold ADPC so it could continue to serve schools for years to come, but that's not to say she's not keeping busy.
I do like to play golf. That's kind of my favorite thing. I play in the Women's League. Just finished playing in the Cherokee Strip Classic, which I just have to say I won first place. But it was really fun. I like to work for the Marlin Mansion. I'm on the foundation board there, and I like just a lot of the civic things in town that I still do that I enjoy doing, you know.
And of course, when game day comes around, it's all about the Cowboys. Joan Welburn has dedicated her life to helping others, especially the next generation, because someone did the same for her when she was starting out.
I was a single mom with 2 kids, had nothing, and worked at ADPC and ended up buying it, you know, and doing things. And they can do it too. They just need to put their mind to it. Anything you can learn new, learn it. And that's just my motto. I just was really gung-ho and learning anything I could new. If somebody else can do it, why can't I?
Joan Welburn, 2017 inductee into the Oklahoma CareerTech Hall of Fame.
Well, you're lucky I'm last, because I really didn't have the life of being a teacher or being in the system like everybody else, but I really feel like I was in the system because I have been to every school that the CareerTechs have. I went to work there in the early 60s, so in 1967, I believe it was, when the CareerTechs actually broke off and were on their own. So I've been to every one of those schools, set up their accounting systems with them, and have just made wonderful friends all over the state. I would like first to thank Connie. Connie actually instigated me being inducted into this Hall of Fame. She nominated me, along with all of the business managers and some of the superintendents and people throughout the state. I mean, it is a great honor for me. I feel like I won the Oscar. I mean, I am really honored and thrilled, and I want to thank everybody that voted for me. And actually, I can't believe that Dwight Stoddard was on that committee because, you know, he's the one guy that, oh my gosh, I gave him a lot of trouble. It's a wonder he and RL still talk to me, but they do. So over the years, really, I've just had a great opportunity and a great life. Very few people have a job that they stay at 50 years and love every minute of it. And I have. I want to really say that I couldn't have ever done it without my employees. A lot of them are here tonight. Even Frank came back. Can you believe that? So I want you guys stand up. You're a great group, and I couldn't have done it without you. There's been a few times that I've gone to things that I've really, really enjoyed. We all know that for years and years, the CareerTech schools went to Western Hills for their summer conference. That was always lots of fun. I have lots of pictures I probably could share, but I'm not going to. I have lots of stories I could probably share that happened in the, governor's suite, but we won't talk about that tonight. Also, I've loved being a sponsor. I've been a gold star sponsor since the CareerTech started having their golf tournaments. It's always been great, except for one little thing. I thought I'd always get the longest drive, but that skinny little girl from Bartlesville, Kim, always outdrove me. I told her tonight I was going to say that because every time her name would be on the plaque. Couldn't believe it. I thought, surely I'll get her someday. But I really do appreciate it. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. I'll make my story short. Well, I want to thank my family. Actually, my sister came back from Arizona. Barbara and her husband are here, and you can stand. They work for Sally Downey, who most of you know in Arizona, at Mesa, at the CareerTech there. And my niece Cindy. My daughter is here from St. Augustine, Florida. Too bad my darling grandkids couldn't be here, but she has 2 boys, Blake and Ryan. One's at Purdue, studying engineering, and the other one just graduated from Kaiser University of Golf in West Palm Beach. So they both were kind of busy, and her husband couldn't come today. So, and my son Greg, who lives in Ponca City, and my husband Richard, of course, who's always very supportive of all the things I do. And I have been gone a lot, but I have enjoyed it. And I just want to once again say I'm in a really great group of people. I know most of the honorees from tonight and lots of them from before. And they've all been good friends. Thank you so much.
On behalf of the Oklahoma Department of CareerTech, the CareerTech Foundation, and our generous sponsors, we thank you for attendance for tonight's 2017 Hall of Fame Awards ceremony. I want to thank again Dr. Greg Winters and especially Bill Bradley, who was so instrumental in helping Lamesa put this evening's event together. Also Gayla and all of the other staff of the Canadian Valley Technology Center, as well as the students that have assisted us this evening. We want to thank you very much. Not only was Canadian Valley our host, but they were an event sponsor, which was a much more significant financial contribution. We appreciate the support from the school. These people that we have honored tonight have built a legacy of excellence in Oklahoma education. They have, through their mentorship and by example, touched and transformed the lives of countless CareerTech educators and students. Please join me once again in honoring these inductees. This has been a beautiful evening. Thank you. Please drive home safely and have a good night.